The Insta360 Flow is a great little 3-axis gimbal for vlogging, travel and shooting lifestyle content with your smartphone. The SmartWheel design they've come up with for controlling the gimbal is revolutionary in my opinion, and I'm sure that other gimbal makers are gonna be inspired. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to get the most cinematic video from this device. And as well, I'm going to go through all the different controls and all the different functions that you can get with this gimbal. So if you really want to learn how to use this thing, you've come to the right video. After unboxing your Flow, that sounds like a meditation technique, doesn't it?
What are you doing?
Unboxing my Flow.
Anyway, you need to install the Insta360 app, connect to the gimbal and activate it. Place your phone in the clamp so the cameras are on the side of the clamp indicated by this symbol. Mount the phone to the gimbal, twist the arm and the gimbal will power on and it's going to place your phone in vertical mode. One thing I noticed was that it will remember the last mode that you were in and return to that usually. So with it like this, the handle is very short and not too comfortable, at least for me anyway, but you can simply extend it at the bottom. If you extend it further, you now get the tripod legs. It's generally a good idea to calibrate your gimbal before using it. Place the gimbal on a flat surface away from any disturbances, like wind for example. You just don't want it to be shaking while it performs the auto calibration. Tap the gimbal icon in the app, scroll down to auto calibration, tap next and then let it do its thing. So if you find your phone still isn't level, you can adjust this manually in the Insta360 app. Below auto calibration, you will find adjust horizontal axis. Tap the plus and minus buttons to fine tune your gimbal's horizon level.
If you're out filming and you can't remember what a particular button does or how to activate a certain feature, there's a quick way to remind yourself.
Open the settings in the Insta360 app by tapping the 3 dots in the bottom left corner. Then scroll down to Flow Button Operation Guide. Here you'll find 4 screens which tell you what each button on the SmartWheel does as well as the trigger functions.
The Insta360 Flow has a quick start feature which allows you to get shooting a little bit faster.
As soon as you power on the Flow, you will get a notification prompting you to open the Insta360 app. For this to work, you need to enable it in the Insta360 app as well as allowing for notifications in the app and location information in your iPhone. Tap the 3 dots to access general settings and then make sure auto pop-up connection is enabled. And now when you power on the gimbal with the phone attached, you will get a prompt. So just tap to go directly to the Insta360 app and start shooting.
Most gimbals come packed with features, but that doesn't mean that you have to use them all. Generally speaking, most of the time there's like 3 or 4 features that we're probably going to use a lot, and then everything else maybe occasionally. Or not at all. But whether you do end up using all the features or not, it's still a good idea to know what your gimbal is capable of.
So let's look at the SmartWheel. At the bottom is the power button. So the gimbal powers on and off when you open and close it, but you can also power it on and off by long pressing the power button. If you short press the power button, the lights flash telling you how much battery remains. And if you short press the power button twice, the gimbal goes into sleep mode. To wake up the gimbal, press any button once. Of course, press the record button to start recording or take a photo. So if you're in photo mode and you long press this button, your camera will shoot a burst of photos. The Insta360 Flow has 4 main modes: Auto, Follow, Pan Follow and FPV, which is first person view. To switch modes, you can use the SmartWheel. Swipe around the wheel in an arc, clockwise or anti-clockwise, depending whether you want the mode to the left or to the right. Double tap lightly on the record or switch buttons to switch the shooting mode. The shooting mode are the modes in the app, like photo, video, time-lapse, and that kind of stuff. So you can actually change this in the app settings so that it works the other way around. Tap the gimbal icon on the left of the screen here and then tap Custom. So by default, you have option A, which does what I've just described. But if you switch to option B, it's reversed. So now tapping the SmartWheel switches gimbal modes, while swiping switches the shooting modes in the app. The Insta360 modes are mostly the same as we are used to using, with other gimbals. But the first mode here of the 4 is actually a bit different, and it's simply called Auto. So Insta360 says Auto mode is good for beginners, as it will adjust to what you're doing to give you the best results. So again, this is perhaps another kind of Apple influence. Like many iPhone features, Auto mode does the thinking for you. For example, if the gimbal detects you're running, it will be less sensitive and more stable. If you're walking or standing still, the gimbal is going to be more sensitive. So in follow mode, the gimbal is going to follow tilt and pan movements, but it won't follow roll movements. Now, while the Insta360 Flow has a pretty limited tilt movement, what the gimbal does is allow you to make a downward movement with your arm while keeping your phone stable. One shot you can use is to sweep down a tall building, for example, and come to rest on a subject. It could be a person, or it could be something else interesting. But follow mode is a good all-purpose mode which allows you to capture a wide range of shots. In pan follow, the gimbal is only going to follow pan movements. That said, like the Osmo Mobile 6, this gimbal does have such a limited tilt movement that you only have to tilt the gimbal at a small angle and it's going to follow that movement anyway. So you can use pan follow in the Insta360 Flow to remove small movements from your hand as you're filming a subject. For example, you can try a walking tracking shot, or circling around the subject can be a really cool cinematic shot. And with this tilt axis locked, any small wobbles are going to be removed. In FPV mode, the gimbal follows movement on all 3 axes. So this is great for more expressive camera movements. And you can also shoot barrel rolls using this mode. All you do is twist the zoom wheel and the camera starts to spin. A pull out or a push in shot can actually look really cool if you rotate the camera at the same time. And the advantage of the FPV mode is that you can combine the rotation movement with other movements. You can create pretty complex movements with your shots. You're only limited really by your imagination. One option is to shoot freestyle. Just experiment, moving freely as you're recording, and then select the best bits from the clip when you come to edit. To use a spin shot, start recording and then use the zoom wheel to rotate the camera, because the motor is going to rotate the camera more evenly than you can doing the shot by hand in the FPV mode. And as well, you can rotate further. And if you want to get some really cool B-roll shots, push in or pull out as the camera spins. So in this setup, I've got the handle extended because I want the camera to be a bit higher, and I want to film myself with the main camera. So I'm just going to do 3 taps on the trigger button. So that rotates the camera, and now it's looking at me. So now I want the camera to track me. So I'm just going to press the trigger 1 time. So even though I'm not looking at the screen, I can see that it's moved. So that tells me that it's locked onto my face and it's going to start tracking me. So I could just press record, and it should be recording, and I can now move around. And if I was doing a live stream, or I was doing some cooking video here, and I need to move around the kitchen and to get some ingredients, and it's going to follow me. So then to stop tracking, just press it 1 more time. And press record to stop recording. 2 taps on the trigger recenters the gimbal. While you hold the trigger down, the gimbal is going to be in locked mode. And this means the gimbal isn't going to react to any of your movements. So this is good for shots where you want to move in a straight line. Tap, release, and then hold the trigger to enter Active Plus mode. And this is like the sport mode in the DJI gimbals, and most gimbals have this mode. They have different names, but it just means that the gimbal is going to react quicker to your movements. If you are on the home page, tap the trigger 1 time to go into shooting mode. Now let's look at the switch button. So you just press the switch button once to switch between front and rear cameras. And as I said, this actually works when you're recording as well. So if you press the switch button twice, you will switch between landscape and portrait mode. Triple press the switch button to switch between photo and video mode. Now if you long press on the switch button, the Insta360 app enters player mode. In player mode, you can view media that you've captured with the gimbal. And the last item that you captured is going to be viewed, and if it's a video, it'll just start playing automatically. Now, if you do that circular swiping motion, you can actually skip backwards and forwards through a video clip. If you want to manually play the clip, tap the trigger or tap the screen and then tap again to pause. you can have 4 options at the bottom, which allows you to favorite, get info, unmute, or trash the clip. So if you press the record button or the switch button, you will cycle through all your captured media. And you can actually use the zoom wheel to zoom in and out of any media. And then you can use the joystick to navigate around the image. Finally, press the power button to return to shooting mode.
So here's some tips for getting the most out of the extending handle of the gimbal. I'm going to be talking about shots that you can't really get holding your smartphone in your hand, unless you have really long arms, that is.
So the most obvious is using it to get a selfie photo or video. So extend it as far as it will go, and then you can adjust the angle here. So I've used this to film myself with the selfie camera as well as with the main camera. Usually you will get a better quality image with the main camera, but of course framing is harder. To use the main camera, first tap the trigger 3 times to rotate 180 degrees. Again, you can just adjust the angle with this hinge here. So this extending handle can also be used to get high and low angles, the kind of shots that would normally be beyond your reach. So extend the handle and lower the camera to the ground. So the camera is going to flip upside down, but that's okay because smartphone cameras are actually designed so that they can shoot upside down. And now use the joystick to angle upwards slightly. Start recording and move along in a straight line. So this shot looks really cool if you motivate the camera movement by tracking the movement in the frame. This is an angle down shot that I got of some buskers in Trafalgar Square. So I just extended the handle, used the joystick to adjust the angle to get the framing correct, start recording, and then I just circled around the subject. And to make these shots look extra smooth, I will often shoot at 60 frames per second and then slow the shot to 30 frames per second when editing.
Does the Insta360 Flow work with Android? So I think this is the question that I get asked most every time I release a gimbal video. Does the gimbal work with a specific Android device? And the simple answer is yes. Pretty much any smartphone will work with any smartphone gimbal. But I know that's not what you're really asking. So what you're really asking is, does your specific Android device work as well with the gimbal as it does with an iPhone? And I'm afraid that in that case, the answer is almost certainly no. So the problem with Android for any third-party apps that deal with the cameras of your device is basically the sheer number of devices. And they all have different operating systems which give different permissions depending on the maker of the device. For example, Samsung does not allow third-party camera apps to shoot in 60 frames per second or to access the telephoto camera. So if you have a Samsung and you've got the Insta360 Flow and you want to shoot in 60 frames per second, then you're going to have to shoot with the native app. As well, if you want to use the telephoto lens, again, you're going to have to use the native app. Now, if you connect your Samsung directly to the Insta360 Flow using Bluetooth without using the Insta360 app, the record button will work with your native Samsung camera app. But if you want features like tracking and all that kind of stuff, then you're going to have to use the Insta360 app. And another thing is that the Insta360 app for Android does not support manual control like it does for iPhone.
So you're going to need the Insta360 app to activate the gimbal. But apart from that, it also contains plenty of features as well as important settings. This is actually the same app which is used for Insta360's other cameras. So if you already have an Insta360 camera, you'll probably already have the app installed. Here's how to change the basic settings. Tapping the house icon takes you back to the Insta360 app homepage. Resolution and frame rate can be accessed by tapping where you can see the current resolution and frame rate setting. So as I say, the options here will depend on your device. So you can tap the gimbal icon and that's going to open up various settings for the gimbal. For example, here you can change the gimbal mode and you can adjust the joystick speed as well as the zoom speed, and you can adjust the tracking sensitivity, and there's all kinds of other stuff here as well. Tap the 3 dots to access general settings. And again, there's quite a few different things that you can do here. Whatever mode you're in, you can just press the red shutter or record button to capture. So if you just want to simply lock exposure and focus, you can use the good old-fashioned long press on the screen. But if you look at the bottom of the screen, you will see these numbers here beside the word auto. The 2 numbers in the middle are your shutter speed and your ISO. If you move the camera around, you'll most likely see these numbers changing. And that's because they're being set automatically. To the right of that is the EV number, which is the exposure value. And this tells you whether the camera thinks your image is correctly exposed or not. A setting of 0 means that the camera is basically happy with the exposure. So if you want to set these exposure settings manually, tap the button in the middle on the left. Swipe the EV number to get your camera to set exposure darker or lighter. So the camera is still going to set shutter speed and ISO automatically, but it's now going to aim for a lighter or a darker image, depending on the number you set. So we might use this if we find the highlights are blown out and would rather they weren't. So this often happens if you're filming or taking a photograph of a landscape. So if you want to see the sky more clearly, just reduce the EV number. And this is actually called exposing for the highlights. If you want to see the landscape more clearly, you can try pushing up the EV number. So tap to switch to manual exposure. So now you can set shutter speed and ISO precisely, and they won't adjust during the shot. So this can't actually be done in the Android version of the app, only in the iPhone version. And once set to manual, you can also set white balance at the bottom. So we can tap the trigger one time to start tracking, but we can also draw a box on the screen with our finger over the object that we want to track. Now, when using the front selfie camera, the app will only track faces. If you draw a box over any other object, it just won't work. And if it doesn't see your whole face, sometimes it doesn't work then either. The Insta360 Flow app allows you to start recording and tracking using a hand gesture. You will need to enable it first. Tap the hand icon and choose to either start recording or recording and tracking, which is the second option. Now show the camera the palm of your hand and it's going to start recording. If you selected tracking as well, it looks for a face to track. To stop recording, use the same gesture. And if you use this gesture in photo mode, it will count to 3 and then take a picture. So this is a really useful feature for taking group photos from a distance if you have somewhere to place the gimbal first. And if you select tracking, it'll also look for a face as it counts down and move the camera to center on that face. Aside from the basic photo and video modes, within the Insta360 app, there are a number of different modes to allow you to create content in different ways. A time-lapse is a video created by using very slow frame rates. Normal frame rates are like 24 or 30 frames per second. With time-lapse, we set it to shoot at something like 2 frames a second, or 1 frame every 5 seconds. And the Insta360 app lets you shoot as slow as 1 frame every 60 seconds, so 1 frame a minute. And the result is going to be time speeded up. In the final video, the slower your frame rate, the faster time will go in the resulting video. When you switch to time-lapse, you get a bar at the top which contains the time-lapse settings. So on the left, we've got frame rate, and in the middle is how long the app will actually film for. And so that's obviously going to be much longer than the final video will be. To adjust settings, you just tap on this bar and it will expand. Swipe the interval duration setting to choose the frame rate. And actually on the right, you're going to see that the app gives you a little hint as you swipe. Well, at least for the first few settings anyway. So if I want to shoot some clouds scudding across the sky, I will choose a 1 second duration, or basically 1 frame per second. Below that, we can choose how long we want the app to record. So for this kind of video, I would say 10 or 20 minutes is enough, but it does depend on how long you want the final video. So I'm happy for it to come out at about 20 seconds or so. And at the bottom, you can choose the type of time-lapse you want to create. Fixed angle means the camera doesn't move. Left to right or right to left is going to rotate or pan the camera during the time-lapse. And finally, custom allows you to create a movement between 2 or more points. So you can use this to create a diagonal movement. You can set up to 4 points, but to be honest, I've never had the need to set more than 2. So just use the joystick to find the first frame, tap the plus, move to the final frame with the joystick, and then tap plus again. And if you want to add more points, you just keep moving with the joystick and then tapping plus. And then finally, you just press the record button and again, you let it do its thing. So Timeshift is Insta360's version of hyperlapse, which is the same as timelapse, except you're moving the camera by walking or some other method. There's no settings, so just press record and start moving. So the app is going to record the video and then it will speed it up after you've finished recording. At the bottom, you can see how long you've been recording on the left and how long the final video is going to be on the right. So nothing happens until you open the video in the gallery, and then the Insta360 app starts to process the video, which means it's basically applying the speed change. And so you're going to get a message that's saying time shift analyzing. And once it's finished, you can view, use, or share your hyperlapse. And by the way, time-lapse and hyperlapse videos do have a max resolution of 1080p. So time-lapse and especially hyperlapse videos can look pretty cool if you add some motion blur. It just makes the motion within the frame smoother and it's kind of more dynamic. And cars and people kind of look like they're whooshing past. So to do this, you will need another app, but it is a free one. So the app is called CapCut, and it is a really cool app. So bring the clip in, tap the clip, find motion blur in the bottom menu, and then just play around with the settings. I've set it to about these settings that you can see here, and then just export the video. Apart from regular pano photos, the Insta360 Flow allows you to take 360-degree photos as well. And that is one feature currently unique to this gimbal. So it is a little bit more complicated compared to other modes. You can't just tap a button to make it work. First, you'll need to set your phone slightly differently. Put the gimbal in vertical mode and then switch it off. Turn the phone so the screen is against the back of the clamp, and then raise it up a little so it's also higher in the clamp. Switch the gimbal back on and you'll get this guide which will let you know where the clamp should be. Press the shutter button on the gimbal and now you'll get a countdown, and then it will start taking photos. And when it's finished, these photos are then stitched together to create a 360-degree photo. Then you can swipe on the screen to look around the image. Once you have your 360-degree photo, you now have some choices about what to do with it. Tap the photo to bring up the editing options. At the top, we can switch between animate and edit. In animate mode, you can now choose one of the preset animations at the bottom. Watch the animation and then see if you like it. If you want to replay it, you can just tap the screen. So there's actually another menu of buttons at the bottom. You can change the frame ratio. Color Plus gives the image more contrast and color saturation. Music allows you obviously to add music. Snapshot allows you to save a non-360-degree flat frame, or you can choose to save the full 360-degree image. Face Filter lets you apply various beautifying effects. Filter opens a menu of preset colors. Adjust allows you to manually adjust the look. And then finally, there's the reset button. In edit mode, you basically have exactly the same except without the animations. So you can swipe and pinch to reframe the image and then export when you're done. Or you can export the whole 360-degree image. So just tap export to either export a single flat reframed image or the whole 360-degree photo. If you do export a 360-degree photo, you will get this stretched out looking photo in your gallery. A 360-degree photo can be shared to platforms that support 360 media. For example, Facebook supports this. And it's actually pretty simple to do. So this is actually my Facebook page, and I'm going to link the image in the description of this video so that you can check out how it looks once it's uploaded. So I'm using the desktop page here, but I guess you can do it with the mobile app as well. Click to add photo or video, and then just drag the file over and drop it in. Once you get the edit button, tap that, and then drag the photo around with the mouse or with your finger just to choose the starting image. So once it's uploaded, people viewing the photo can just swipe or drag it around to look at the full 360 degrees. So it's pretty fun, isn't it? But also, I would say it's useful for things like real estate listings, for example. So you can now shoot 360-degree photos with a gimbal and a smartphone.
If you do want to learn more about camera movement and motivating camera movement, there's video lessons available for members on Patreon. There's also books to download and all kinds of other video lessons. And there's now a 9-day course for beginners as well. And that's it for this video, and I'm going to see you in the next video that I see you in.